Yeah, it's got a long title. Let's jump right into that. And now to bring our module of the week to us, let's turn it over to Martin Anderson Klutz, a senior solutions engineer at Acquia and a maintainer of a number of modules and recipes of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, John. Have you ever wanted to use inline entity forms but have the dependent form open in dialog? There's a module for that. It's called IEF Complex Widget Dialog, and it was created in March of 2020 by DataWeb. The recent releases are by Chris Lai, aka Chris CK, a fellow Canadian. It has 2.1.1 and 2.2.2 versions available, the latter of which is compatible with Drupal 8.8 or newer, all the way up to Drupal 11. It is actively maintained. In fact, the most recent release was in the past month. And in terms of issues open, it has 4 open issues, none of which are bugs against the current version. It does have 273 sites using it, according to Drupal.org. And really, when you install the module, your inline entity form widget configuration form will have a new checkbox to enable pop-up for IEF. Now, it includes specialized handling for different kinds of entities like nodes, users, taxonomy terms, and users. And it will handle not just the creation forms, but also editing existing entities, as well as duplicating or deleting entities. Now, this is probably not something you would always need, but it can be very useful if the form you want to use for entity or even the parent forms are very complex. I should also add that IEF itself supports form modes. So often when I'm working with IEF, I will create some kind of an embedded form mode that exposes fewer elements. For example, hiding the fields for URL alias, sticky, and so on. So personally, I would start there. But if the content creation experience still feels complex, then IEF Complex Widget Dialog would be a nice way to help out your content creators. So let's talk about the module.
I feel like this is particularly isn't like the genesis of inline entity forms from commerce, right? I feel like this is where that's particularly useful if you're having like a manual collection page or something where you're creating a bunch of content.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it originally had to do, well, you're right, in commerce where you had to add, you kinda had to add, different variations to a product. So then you could be on the product page and just open the form in a pop-up basically and add those variations without having to go through, like, different pages.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really useful. And then I think the other place that I see this happening quite a bit is when you have like team pages on organizations. Like sometimes it feels like overkill to just have a full, like having to go to an individual page when it's just really for a listing. But if you kind of have that embedded, that's helpful. I, I, the thing I really like about these types of modules is it makes these type of embedded relationships cleaner. Like I generally try to avoid them where possible because they're so complex. But if this works like the new paragraph like modal system works, I think it's a much better experience and actually might make exposing those relationships a little bit cleaner for clients.
Yeah, I think another place where this is really helpful, and I'll have to actually look to see if my dev team is actually using this. But when you're using layout builder and you're building out kind of complex block components, sometimes those blocks have other things inside them, other entities inside them, and this could be useful for creating and managing those as well. So, yeah, definitely a great kind of user interface solution here, I think.
Whenever I saw it, I immediately thought of a council document solution that I built for City of Portland. And you have these weekly council meetings that have sessions, and then they have agendas, and then in each agenda item, you're associating a document. Well, the only part of that that is a content object is your overall council meeting and your deepest document layer, but all those other layers are just kind of glue that hold everything together. So this would be awesome for popping up, non-content entities. Martin, your storage module, I could see like pulling up a storage entity and having a little bit more complex form where you've got some more metadata that you're tying everything together with. So really cool.
Just out of curiosity, would this work with like a complex media item too? Like if you had multiple fields on a media entity for some reason, like could you use this as a not as
Oh
a
yeah,
replacement for the media library, but like a special field for that?
I can
Yep,
totally
just
see
have
that.
to enable that as your widget, I guess.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to just quickly mention, Nick, you called out, the relationship to commerce. I feel like in some ways in the Drupal ecosystem, Drupal commerce is a bit like the space race. I feel like there are a bunch of very pervasive technologies that we have today, things like Velcro, that really owe their origin to the, development of the space race. And I feel like a lot of things in Drupal, in the same way, address, inline entity form, really came out of the needs to create a good commerce experience.
I literally, when you first said that, thought you were attributing Velcro to Drupal commerce. And I was like, wait, what? I'm like, what library is this? I'm not familiar with the Velcro module. What does it do? I'm with you now. And yeah, as somebody who
That's a good
really,
point.
really loves Drupal commerce, like I do agree, a lot of great stuff has come out of there. Another thing that comes to mind is the address handling in both the
Yep.
address module and in Drupal. I think that was a big part of commerce.
So I have one question, Martin, and I think the answer is no. But you mentioned form modes, and I feel like one of the nice things that a module like this could provide, and I recognize that this is probably complex, but I feel like sometimes when you're editing inline content like that, you you're editing different things. So it'd be great if you could like open the dialogue with a different form mode, like maybe like a compact versus like if you're just trying to change the title or something else, or like maybe just open it. It's got 2 or 3 fields, but if you really need a deeper one, I mean, I guess you could just go back to the page, but that kind of defeats the purpose. Like it'd be nice to be able to open a different form mode depending on what you're trying to do with that content. Does this support that? I imagine no.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. I mean, theoretically, it's probably something that could be supported. I think it does expose some different sort of entity actions. So I'm not sure if it does it in a drop button or as discrete actions, but either way, in theory, there could be multiple ones created if there are multiple form modes available. But I haven't seen any evidence in the configuration so far of it really being able to support that. I will say I have actually done that with a different module, add content by bundle, which I use for like if I have a view of any content type, to basically have a button at the top of that says, create one of these. So if it's a listing of events, have a button to create a new event, or if it's a blog to say, at the top, create a new blog post. You can specify form modes with that one. And so I've done that where I'll have a quick add. So it's like I've got a listing of events. If I just want to put in like the title and the date and time, I can press that one and get a really nice small form. Or I have a separate button that will point to the full form if I have, like maybe it's a past event and there's a video recording and some other pieces that I want to populate. So there are options, and yeah, that could be a nice addition for, the future of this module, I would say.
Martin, I don't know if you know this, but there's I believe a cat on the couch behind you.
That's actually a small dog. So
it was a 50-50. I couldn't really tell. I was like, it looks kind of like a dog, but it could be a cat. Anyway, I apologize to your doggo for calling it a cat. All right. Well, Martin, thank you for bringing us another wonderful module of the week. I'm sure I know at least a couple of people on this panel are going to go out and try to use it right away. I'm sure our listeners will do the same. If folks wanted to connect, suggest a module, how could they go about doing that?
We are always happy to get nominations for Module of the Week in the Talking Drupal channel of Drupal Slack, or folks can reach out to me directly as ManClue on all of the Drupal and social platforms.
Fabulous. Thanks a lot, Martin.
See you next week.